A quick disclaimer before this video plays. I understand this is not a game analysis video, and don't worry about that, guys. The next video out will be a game analysis video, so this is just a one-off video that I had to get off my chest. If you want to watch, please do watch, because I feel like anyone will get value out of this video. Anyway guys, enjoy the rest of this video, and thank you ever so much for watching. Music has been a medium since the beginning of man. Used to go into battle, for the backgrounds of Shakespeare's plays, and even for just sitting around the campfire having a good time. Music, no matter what culture, no matter what area of the world you are from, at some point in your country's history, has played a big role. And in the more recent years of our world's music, we had the introduction to funky and fun pop in the 80s, the introduction to cool hip hop in the 90s, and the early 2000s rock and heavy metal. I myself was a massive fan of Eminem growing up as a child. In fact, I listened to pretty much all of his stuff that came out, and to this day I'm still listening to Eminem, as he is my favourite rapper to this day. I find his newer stuff to have some good messages, and his older stuff to be really powerful and just fun. As I got older, my music variety would switch. I'd go through pop and rock and even country, but the one that always stood out most to me was always rap/hip hop. I went through a lot of rappers: Juice WRLD, XX, Drake, and many others. And in my opinion, I refined quite a nice and natural and good music taste. Until more recent years anyway. About a year or two ago, I had quite a tough year, and after that year I said I was going to improve myself and get quite fit. I ended up going to the gym, and I now do boxing. However, at the time I decided to get fit, this was when artists such as Yeet and those absolutely abysmal Sigma edit songs started to really pop off. And as a young man filled with testosterone ready for my next pump at the gym or next win at boxing, those were the songs I gravitated towards, forgetting about lyrics, storytelling, and overall good music, and more focusing on what music can get my adrenaline. I mean, it got to the point at one point I completely stopped listening to artists like Eminem, Ed Sheeran, and other artists I grew up with and listened to, and sort of went for this weird Sigma-y phase. To put it lightly, my music taste was bad. And I'm not saying you can't like the old funk song or the old Yeet song here and there, but when your entire music vocabulary is built around it, yeah, it's not a pretty look. Until about 4 months ago, when I was sat in the back of my mum and dad's car on a long distance journey to one of my amazing sister's wedding venues to have a look round. It was raining, and I wasn't really feeling my normal music, so I remembered those old YouTube artists I used to listen to. By old I mean artists like Quadeca and KSI, which aren't very old. But hey, I said, what the hell, I haven't heard some of Quadeca's music in a while, and to my surprise, I saw an 11-month-old album, a new album that I hadn't heard, and I was completely shocked. I used to love his music, so I put it on and began to listen to it. Picture this, right? You're in the back of a car, it's raining, and there really is nothing to do, and you're bored out of your mind. And you put on this song, Sorry for Dying, and you are taken into this another universe, and you know that this album, this song, this record will be different. And eventually, I got to the end of the album, and I had this overwhelming amount of emotions just running through me, but yet I didn't know if I liked the album. It was really odd, it just felt like an odd album. So I said, you know what, I'll give it one more listen and see how I feel. And I gave it another listen, and I felt those same emotions again and again and again and again. And I listened to it again and again and again and again. And I listened to it more and more, and by my 6th or 7th listen, I was still feeling these emotions. But yet, I had never felt so emotionally connected to any other album or songs before. And I've listened to over thousands, well, probably thousands of songs, and at least over 60 albums, but I have never had the connection of emotion that I had with the album I Did Not Mean to Haunt You. I won't lie, when I first listened to the album, I really didn't know what it was about, and even now, some of it I still struggle to understand what it's about. but through my understanding and from the research I myself have conducted, I can understand that most of it, or some of it, is from the perspective of a ghost. Hence the title, I Didn't Mean to Haunt You. And this ghost is from the perspective of a ghost that didn't want to die, someone who struggles with the fact that they're haunting their loved ones, even though all they want to do is reconnect and feel them, and be with them, and love them, and hear them again. Now, the idea to this masterpiece of an album came to Quedeca, aka Benjamin Lasky, when he was in quite a dark time in his life. A time in his life where he wasn't exactly suicidal, but he was comfortable with the idea of not being around, / as he puts it, being nothing.
Which it was kind of in a weird way, or I don't know if it was in a weird way, but this idea of like not existing kind of became almost like a comforting, happy place in my mind, you know?
All of what has been said is on an interview with Anthony Fantano, so if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do. It's just literally Anthony Fantano and Quedeca interview. Check it out, it's fantastic. Anthony Fantano is fantastic. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that. And it's in this interview he actually goes into great detail on why and what his album is really about. In fact, he goes into great detail on how he wanted to write it from the perspective of this ghost who didn't really want to die, but also have a lot of takes on grief. And this is where I feel like the album really touches me, is on this look of grief and this grief side of things, because it's never actually, we never get a moment in the album where it's from like per se the mother's perspective of this child or something, but it's very much implied grief, and that's what to me makes it so powerful. I myself am one of the few and fortunate people to never have directly experienced grief in my life. However, I have seen it happen to a lot of people, and I've seen the effect, the awful effect it has on people, and the effect that it then has on me myself. And the sad thing about grief is that it will happen to all of us, or has happened to all of us at some point in our lives. We will all experience it, and at one point we would like to think we will all be grieved. And while the feeling of being nothing, being complete nothing, is not one that has come to me personally, and is not one that has come to many others, the feeling of death and looking at death is something we all need to address at some point in our lives. Death, to a degree, determines how we live our lives. Whether you address it now or later, at some point you have to come to terms with it, and it does kind of dictate how you live. And that is a further part that really touches me, is how Quedeca deals with death in this album. He does it in such a mature and amazing way, it just gets to me so well. I mean, for example, the intro song to the album is literally called Sorry for Dying, in which a ghost is apologizing and is completely grieved with himself that he has died, so he can now never be with his loved ones. And this song alone, straight away, touched me and just made me feel incredibly sad over this album. And this album achieves this in a way I've never seen any other album achieve. The album, in short, is about a ghost who will have to accept this nothingness that is approaching him so that he and his family can move on from his own death. Never in my life have I found and felt such a connection, such a strong bond to just the beats and the sound quality alone this album has to bring. I mean, sure, I felt like empowerment from Sigma music, and like I felt that beats have been good or catchy, but I've never had this raw connection to just the melody or just the beat of a song like I have in Quedeca's album. This album's instrumentals and sounds are just incredible and impeccable to me, and to this day in my life I have never felt such raw connection to just the instrumentals alone from these tracks. It's just amazing. The raw power and emotions provoked from each track's sounds are just incredible. A perfect example to this raw sound is on a track called The Memories We Lost in Translution. This track has nearly no talking, and it just does a tone shift for the album's halfway point so well, and it makes it so much more powerful. Quedeca has some incredible lyrics on this album, and through his singing and rapping and whatever he is saying on this album, it always comes through as powerful, especially on tracks like Fractions of Infinity or one of my favourites, House Sitting, and I'll just let Ben explain what he did on this one.
I'll do the pitch for you. I was like, hey, I have this song called House Settling. It's on this concept album from the perspective of a ghost. He's like settling into his family's old home, like desperate at this point to make his presence known and for them to see him and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But whatever he does to get their attention, they just write it off as house settling, you know, like creaks in the floor, cracks and shit or whatever. Like, it's kind of a little play on words because it's, you know, he's literally settling into the house, but it's also like this old house that's settling, you know, and he becomes like more and more desperate throughout the song to just be seen, you know, because he spent this whole album, and at this point it's like a real like dire moment. And there's a thing that happens when houses settle. It's common for like old furnaces to wear down and for carbon monoxide to leak into houses and shit. Like carbon monoxide leaks are a common symptom of houses when they're settling, and carbon monoxide leaks are also a very common cause of ghost sightings. You know, like people hallucinate and think that their houses are haunted, and so the character kind of decides like, oh, I will like cause pain to these people, but I want so desperately to be seen, like I'm gonna like leak carbon monoxide into this home, you know. And
now I'm going to take you through each track and just say what I think about them and what I think they're about. Sorry for Dying is literally the perfect way to start an album. It is about a ghost who didn't want to die, who is now absolutely in mortification that they can't be with or touch or love their loved ones anymore in person. Tell Me a Joke is an extremely powerful song, and I have to address how good the music videos across this album are. They're filmed in abandoned places in Turkey and Iceland, and they are just incredible. Don't Mind Me is an extremely powerful track about being nor dead or alive, but just being stuck in the middle, being a ghost, almost being, well, this purgatory state, making this track extremely powerful. Picking Up Hands is just a reminder of the perfectness of this album and what it's really about. A ghost that didn't want to die, but now has to watch their loved ones continue through life. It's so powerful and provokes probably the most amount of raw emotions from me, and somewhat unsettling, but still so catchy. Born Yesterday has the best music video without a doubt on the album and is extremely catchy. The Memories We Lost in Translutions works extremely well as an interlude and to conjoin the album's second half and as a tone switch. House Sitting is one of my most replayed songs on the album, and it features Danny Brown, and holy shit is it just one of the best lyrically and just one of the most powerful songs I've heard, and also has one of the best Danny Brown verses I've ever heard in my life. Knots is a really powerful song, really pushing the album's production to its limits and making me feel just completely out of this world amazed. Fantasy World really drives home the ghost's emotions and how he will or they will have to leave all of this behind one day and go into this nothingness void, into a new part of its existence, and it's just such a powerful song. Fractions of Infinity is extremely powerful, really feeling like this ghost is finally going to accept this nothingness approaching it and just move on. However, the Sunday Service chorus is just even more incredible, adding so much more to this song. Cassion Division represents the ghost finally moving into that nothingness and the album ending, and it ends with almost 3 minutes of complete static showing the ghost moving on into this nothingness, and this is a repeating theme, the static, throughout the album. Now this song gets a lot of hate, but I think it's one of the smartest songs on the entire album. It's this ghost transitioning into this nothingness whilst it's being consumed by it, the static representing the nothingness slowly consuming and taking over the entire track. There's no rapping or singing or features on this track, it is just really slow and discontorted lyrics. This song is extremely powerful and just such an amazing way to end the album. However, that being said, ending the album with almost 3 minutes of static and no real singing did leave me a bit confused, and I was one of the people wanting a bit more from this last track. This video is really odd to me. I mean, this video I've made. I mean, I've had a script for it that I've wrote countless times in my head and then rewrote in real life. I've done filming for it and editing for it, which I've re-edited and unedited, and I've thought this through many times what I would say at this end segment. The truth is, I don't really know. This is a video I felt I had to make for myself, much like Quadeca felt he had to make the album for himself. In fact, even putting this video out as a passion project really does worry me because the channel has just started to gain traction and I really don't want it to lose it. But, that being said, this is something I had to make, and it's a love letter to Quadeca's album and to music as a whole. Quadeca, thank you, for you have changed the way I consume and look at music. Through the ways you have made me feel and the ways you've made me understand music through this album, I cannot thank you enough. And I know this hasn't been a clear review, but I'm going to give this album a 10 out of 10, and it was my album of the year. Thank you guys ever so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe, and I will see you all for the next video. Stay safe, guys. Peace.